Well, good morning, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning, and it is getting ready to rain here. We're expecting an inch of rain today, which is unbelievable on the 9th of February. But I had to remake this video. I made it a couple of weeks ago and uploaded it into the computer, but I hadn't finished editing it, and I've had to remake it because things have changed since I made the video. And it is about the fact that Saudi Arabia had been talking to China about using the Yuan as exchange for and settlement for Saudi oil, or the Saudi Rial. And now India is paying Russia for oil in United Arab Emirates dirhams and instead of dollars. And Venezuela has since announced that it will no longer be using the American dollar. It will be using the euro, the yuan, or any other settlable currency that is accepted worldwide. And why this is important is because I'm sure most of my listeners know this, but if you didn't, the world's energy has been priced in petrodollars basically since the 60s, since the US, Henry Kissinger negotiated with the Saudis to price all of their oil in US dollars. Okay, and this has been a kind of the backing for the reserve currency of the US over the years, more than gold, in fact. But that meant that every country in the world who needed to buy oil or energy, which is every country in the world, had to do so in dollars. And this meant that they need a dollar reserve in their bank accounts so that they can use that whenever they need to purchase. Now that they no longer need to do that and they can use other currencies, all of those dollars no longer need to sit idle. And this is one of the ways that the US was able to print so much money and yet really create so little inflation for the amount of money that had been printed, was that it went off and it sat in a vault somewhere until they wanted to purchase energy, and it really didn't reach street level. But now, as those dollars flood home, the inflation in the US, you're definitely going to get a second peak of inflation, no doubt about it. And it may well lead to the collapse of the US dollar, as nobody will accept the dollar in trade or settlement because it'll be just inflating so much, just like the Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe. You won't know what the value of the dollar is, and nobody will use it. And that's when they're going to flock to any other stable currency of settlement. I think Bitcoin will be a big player in this. I think that because of the lack of trust in the world today between countries, whether currencies are gold-backed or not, I don't think trading partners, the EU is not going to trust Russia or China, with the yuan or the ruble, whether it's gold-backed or not, whether it's digital or not. But I think they will settle for Bitcoin as long as the interweb is still running and functioning in a perfect fashion. Yes, I think they're going to use that because it is the ultimate indifferent arbiter. It cares not who you are, it just cares about the key that you put in there and how much Bitcoin you attach to that key. And the transference of funds is safe and secure. So I think you're going to see Bitcoin is going to rise right out of the background and give a lot of people a few surprises. And that's not financial advice. I'm not saying buy Bitcoin. I'm just saying this is what I feel is going to happen, just based on sheer human nature. You can see the way these countries deal with each other. They obviously don't trust each other at all. When you look at the contracts that they write, they basically tie each other's hands behind their back so they can ensure that they can get what they want. And so, yes, they are going to be looking for something that is completely reliable and honest and cannot be confiscated. This is going to be huge going forward too. But as I say, this news that Saudi Arabia has now relented, it has sent a huge message to any energy supplier around the world, whether that be South America, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, as I said, or Africa, Nigeria, this kind of stuff. Yes, it sent a very strong message that you can now use other currencies than the US dollar, the petrodollar, to make to make energy purchases. And so I don't know how long this is going to take effect, or whether the treasury market will just fail because there's just so many treasuries flooding into the market and no buyers. Who knows what is going to happen over this, but it's going to be, it's a foundational change that the world has now woken up, that the US is no longer in charge. And unfortunately for the US, you see, over the years, it has used that hegemony to force these smaller countries to act against their own best interests and to get involved in US foreign policy. For example, when Iraq was invaded, an army of the willing. Well, all those little countries, that were sending 4 or 5 soldiers, they were all leveraged because of the petrodollar, okay, and energy and their requirements for energy. And so a lot of people have got a bad taste in their mouth. And even though they may have continued to use the dollar as exchange, they will deliberately, purposely use another currency because they got a bad taste in their mouth. And last video about negotiation, this is what happens. When you use your power to bowl somebody over, they don't want to go. If they'll find a way to get out of that kind of power position, they will, and they won't want to go back. And so now that opportunity has been presented, and they're going to go. And this is going to be for the worst of the USA. And I've got a few articles here. I'm just going to read the headlines very quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll do a quick wrap-up. Okie dokie, here we go.
And here we go from Reuters. Exclusive. Indian refiners pay traders in dirhams for Russian oil. And this is February the 3rd, 2023. New Delhi, February the 3rd. Indian refiners have begun paying for most of their Russian oil purchased via Dubai-based traders in United Arab Emirates dirhams instead of US dollars, 4 sources with knowledge of the matter said. From RT, Venezuela drops US dollar, will use euro for international transactions. Venezuela is abandoning the US dollar, with all future transactions on the Venezuelan exchange market to be made in euro. Tarek al-Assimi, the country's vice president for economy, announced. The American financial blockade of Venezuela affects both countries' public and private sectors, including pharmacy and agriculture, and shows just how far the imperialism can go in its madness, the vice president said. Venezuela's floating exchange rate system, DICOM, will be operating in euro, yuan, or any other convertible currency and will allow foreign exchange markets to use any other convertible currency, al-Assimi said. Saudi Arabia is open to discuss non-dollar oil trade settlements. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest crude oil exporter, is open to discussing oil trade settlements in currencies other than the US dollar. Saudi Minister of Finance, Al-Jadaan, I don't think we are waving away or ruling out any discussion that will help improve the trade around the world. During a visit to Saudi Arabia last month, Xi Jinping pledged to ramp up efforts to promote the use of the yuan in energy deals. And finally, from US News, China's Xi calls for oil trade in yuan at Gulf Summit in Riyadh. Riyadh. President Xi Jinping told Gulf Arab leaders on Friday that China would work to buy oil and gas in yuan, a move that would support Beijing's goal to establish its currency internationally and weaken the US dollar's grip on world trade. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the beginning of the end of the US dollar.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, and I will guarantee you before the end of the second quarter of 2023, you are going to see the list of countries that are now settling in anything but the dollar for energy, oil, natural gas, and so on and so forth, is going to be staggering. Jaw-dropping, in fact. And like I say, the full impact of the US, we'll probably see that in the second 2 quarters of 2023. It always takes a while for this kind of thing to start filtering through into the public. And so, yes, second half of 2023, look out. And this will be the second wave, the second punch, after people have barely recovered from the inflationary impacts of all of the money that was handed out during COVID. and the supply chain shortages that have created scarcity inflation. So, be ready, ladies and gentlemen, be ready, and keep your eyes and ears open. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe below, and in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.